everybody. Thank you for coming back. This is the Knitting in Paradise podcast, and my name is Heather, and this is episode number 4. Still really early days, so I'm still kind of getting the hang of things, but I'm really enjoying it. And since we are in the midst of the COVID-19 crisis, and I've self-quarantined myself at home, what else is there to do but to record and hopefully, reach out to some of you out there who are self-quarantined as well and are looking for maybe a new podcast. I will tell you right up front, if you've probably already figured it out if you watch my other episodes, but I'm not a dyer, I'm not a pattern designer, I'm just a knitter, crafter, I guess, and I really enjoy sharing my work. And I know, as someone who watches a lot of podcasts, I like seeing other people's work and I get inspired by that. And so even though I'm not really recreating the wheel as far as podcasts are concerned, or I don't really have anything to offer as far as designing or dyeing or anything like that, I hope to share with you some of the stuff that I've done in hopes that it'll inspire what you do as well. So I hope you enjoy. And speaking of the COVID-19 crisis, I hope all of you are healthy. I hope your families are healthy. I hope specifically some of the folks who do make their living on, the small businesses are really being hurt right now. And so my hope is that you are making it through this. I know you all are doing your very best. So my wishes go out to you and your families who are being specifically hit very hard by this pandemic. I don't want this to be a complete downer. So, I've been self-quarantined and I have been knitting like crazy, been watching podcasts. One of the things that was kind of fun about this is, we're trying to be creative as far as how we spend our time. One of the things that my husband likes to do is he rides his motorcycle. And so even though he can't really make any fun stops, which is part of the fun of riding a motorcycle, is you go out and you explore, but he's able to ride his motorcycle, just he stops at any place where there are a bunch of people. But one of the things he was able to do for me the other day, it was really fun. One of my local yarn shops down in Niantic, Connecticut, it's called Twisted Yarn Shop. Really, really cute yarn shop. And of course they were doing curbside orders. So you could call them or text them and, ask if they had a certain specific item and they would check for you. And what ended up happening with me is I was in the mood to make something for the summertime. Right now I'm working on, like I showed in my last episode, I'm working on the Sushilove by Karlyn Hunter. And by the time I finish that, I'm not going to be able to wear it. It's going to be too warm. I'm still going to finish it, obviously, and I'll be able to wear it next winter. But I also wanted to be working on something that I could wear soon. And I wanted it to be bright and springy, and I was really wanting to get something in pinks and reds. And so I called her, and she had posted in her Instagram account a tank top. It's called the Como top, and I can show you a picture of the pattern. They had posted that they had kits for this that include the pattern and of course the yarn for it. And this is called the Como top by Pickles Oslo. I think they're just called Pickles, but they are out of Norway. And it's a little tank top, super duper cute. And they were offering kits with the pattern calls for, I guess Pickles also produces the yarn. And so it does call for their own yarn, but the kits that the Twist was offering, they were doing it in Clio. So, and I got this color, and while it's a very pretty pink on camera, I'm seeing, in real life, it's a little bit, there's a little bit more coral tones to it. So anyways, this is by Plymouth Yarns, Plymouth Clio. I'll show you there. It's blowing out a little bit. There we go. Clio. And this is a 100% mercerized Pima cotton. So yeah, I got a kit of 5 of these because these are 50 grams, 125 yards a piece, cotton. And so I started that. Oh, well, let me get to my little story. And then I wanted something else too. And I don't know, it was totally an impulse thing, impulse buy. So what do you have? I wanted something worsted. I think I had a pattern in mind, but I can't think of what it was right now. But I wanted a bright pinks, purples type worsted yarn. And I've worked with Malabrigos before. I love their Rios. That's their worsted. And so she took a couple of pictures of what they had, texted it to me. I circled what I wanted. I said, give me 2 of those. And so she put this package together. Then we got on the phone. I gave her my credit card information. And I said, my husband will be there soon. He'll be on a motorcycle. And so we kind of killed 2 birds with 1 stone. You know, my husband got to go on a ride because the Twist is it's about 35 to 40 minutes away from me. So he got an hour and a half of riding time at least, to go pick up some yarn for me and a pattern. So it was super fun. So he gets back from his ride and he's got a bag for me. And so it was really kind of neat. But anyways, this is what I got for Malabrigos. It's their English Rose, the Malabrigo Rios English Rose. And that of course is pure merino superwash, 210 yards, 100 grams. So this is also showing a little, well, it's pretty bright. Yeah, that's a pretty good representation. Gorgeous, super squishy, super soft. Not sure what I'm gonna do with it, but I was happy to get it, and the way I got it was just super fun. So, and then I started the Como top, and I've got the body done, and the way it's constructed is it's worked in the round, bottom up, and then when you get up to the V-neck, because it's got a very deep, you can see in the picture, it's got a very deep V-neck, but it also, in other pictures, it's got a very deep V in the back as well. And so once you get up to the V part of it, each section, on the front and the back, is knit flat and separately. So I have the body, it's straight knit, it's very simple. Knit the body, and then I'm pretty close to finishing the first panel. And it's got this I-cord edge on both sides, which I think is really pretty. And then once I knit the back, this is one of the back panels, and then once I knit the front panel, then you Kitchener at the top. Super simple, mindless, fast knit. I started this like the day before yesterday, and between that and sitting in front of Netflix, I got the body done. I have had questions that Pickles answered pretty promptly. As far as I came across just an issue with the pattern that just didn't make sense, but she clarified it for me, and so that was really nice. They got back to me pretty quick. I still have another question, so I'm waiting for that answer, but I can still work on the other panel before I go back and address that issue. But anyways, I'm really excited to wear that and get that finished, even though it'll probably be another 2 months before I can wear it. At least I'll be able to wear it relatively soon versus my Cipolla. I'm probably not going to be able to wear. Well, who knows? I mean, if you are aware of the weather in northeastern United States, you know that one day it could be 55 to 60 degrees and the next day it could be snowing. So maybe I can wear it this season eventually. But anyway, so I'm super excited about that. Wow, I just hopped right into whips. Oh, and I also realized in my last episode where I told you that I was making a shawl for the Bojagi shawl for my mother-in-law because she found some knitting books in a discount store and sent them to me, and I thought that was a really sweet gesture, so I'm making her a shawl. And she had said that she liked reds and browns, and I just so happened to have a couple of knit picks in my stash that I was able to pull and start this shawl. And I went over all of that in the last episode, and I didn't show you what I had going. But it's just as well, because I'll show you again, because I have much more completed than, I mean, I think when I recorded last, I had maybe, that much done. So who wants to look at that? But I got more of it done. And the front is definitely more interesting than the back. So there's that. It is a crescent shaped shawl. And that's the second part, which I'm maybe a third of the way through this portion. Pretty easy, pretty mindless. It's your base. It's a garter stitch with these are slip stitches details, alternating every 2 rows with the colors. So super easy. And I think it's going to be super soft and squishy once I block it. So there's that. That's the I still can't say. I don't think I'm saying it right. Bogaji. It's Bogaji. I think. Anyway, I'll put the name again down here. Or you know what? What's much easier, I've noticed, since it took me hours and hours of editing to put stuff on the screen, and I might just be going to just putting stuff down below in the details so that you can look it up. And that way it won't take as long to edit and get episodes up and running. But anyways, it'll be somewhere. If it's not on the screen, it'll be down below. So that's what I'm working on as well. So between the Kummel top, Bojagi, the shawl, and then of course my Cipolla, those are the 3 things that I'm working on. And I did want to share with you a couple of recent whips that I had, not whips, FOs, that I've done over the past year and a half that I hadn't podcasted, but I wanted to go back and share with you some of the FOs that I would have shared at the time. But anyways, one of the first things I wanted to share was one of my favorite cowls, if not my favorite cowl that I have, and I wear all the time, and that is the Full of Hearts cowl. And this was by Post Stitch. Post Stitch, I think, put this pattern up in Instagram, and I just thought it was so pretty. I use stuff in my stash, but it's pretty close to the color scheme that they used in their pattern, but I just thought it was super cute that I didn't want to go too far off the reservation as far as what the colors that I used. I can't be too specific because I wasn't in my notes on Ravelry. I do know that this was the Knit Picks tonal hand paint that I used for my V-neck boxy. That's in Eugene, so I used that for the darker stripes. The rest is a mixture of, I believe, holly press fibers. I had some minis and some scraps that I used. Holly press fibers was one of them, and Lolo Did It. She's got a couple of colors in here too. I think this one is one of her Pretty Little Zombies, maybe. I can't be sure. But super, super soft, super drapey. And I've worn this all winter long and I love it. So that's the Full of Hearts cowl. I don't know if you can see that this is a sparkly, and so is this one. Yeah, you're not gonna be able to see that. The sparkle in there. You can see it in the red, but I love it. Let's see. The other FO I wanted to share with you, along with a pretty funny story. So this one you probably have seen on Instagram. You'll recognize it because, again, I didn't go too far off the reservation as far as picking my own colors. When I see a picture of a pattern, part of the reason that I am inspired to knit it myself is the colors that they use. Every once in a while, I'll say, well, that would be pretty in this color and that, but not very often. So if I'm inspired enough to do a pattern based on a picture I see, it's part of the reason is because of the colors that the designer chose to post the picture in. And so this right here, this is, and again, I'm not gonna be able to say it correctly, the Bousseron, I believe. Bousseron, probably not even close, but this is by Designs by Dells. Designs by Dells, yes, Designs by Dells. And I might be able to throw another picture in of the designer's picture of it. But I made this for my husband, and it turned out really nice. It fits him perfectly. Oops, there's a little end in there that I left. Anyway, and it's got a slip stitch pattern. Super funny because this is the first sweater that I've knit. I've knit less than 10 sweaters. So I'm not very experienced in sweater knitting, but this is the first sweater that I had to do that the pattern called for neck shaping. So where it's a little bit narrower in the front, and then the back is a little bit longer so that it just sits like the way it's supposed to sit. And so I didn't get that. I mean, I knit it up right, but for whatever reason, when I first finished it and I'm holding it up, I couldn't quite tell what was the front and what was the back. And so when I took pictures of my husband, and you'll be able to see it because I haven't switched the pictures out on my Ravelry page. And I'm Sushiloveknits on Ravelry if you want to look. It's kind of funny. I think I posted this picture on Instagram as well. The picture that I'll insert, hopefully I'll be able to find a picture of my husband wearing it where he's not wearing it backwards. But the pictures in my Ravelry are really great pictures. Unfortunately, he's wearing it backwards. And talk about embarrassing, but I'm really glad they did it. But the designer, and I'm not even sure if Designs by Dells is male or female. I haven't. Anyway, the designer sent me a DM and said, "Eek, I think your husband's wearing it backwards." And I'm glad she pointed it out. I'm absolutely glad she pointed it out. But kind of embarrassing. But live and learn. And now I recognize, as far as the neck shaping, what goes in the front, what goes in the back. Makes total sense. I don't know how I missed that. It's obvious. It's painfully obvious to me now. But anyways, my husband loves the sweater. He wears it all the time. And I used Berroco Ultra wool, which is, of course, 100% wool, I'm pretty sure. And super soft. It blocks out even softer. And it's super, if you haven't ever used Berroco, super reasonable. And I use the colors charcoal and butternut. I don't think the pattern called for Berroco. I can't remember what they used in the pattern. But it's pretty close to these colors. So, really nice stitch definition. So anyways, I'm super happy with it. My husband loves it. And it got the attention of the designer, so yay me! Another really cool detail, I don't know if you noticed, but the end of the sleeves calls for this. And this, of course, is optional. I loved it. I think it's a really neat detail, so I'll put that in there. Anyway, moving on. The other thing that I knit, and this I just knit recently, and if it wasn't for this project, I probably would have had my Stippula done a couple of months ago. But I started this project for my husband in November ridiculously thinking that I would have it in time as a Christmas present. But the amount of time it took for this scarf, of all things, I didn't finish it until March, early this month, as a matter of fact. Maybe late February, I can't remember. But my husband is you probably have seen this, on the Ravelry page, there's like over 900 projects, so it's not a little known pattern. But it blows my mind how many people have done this, and I can't believe people haven't put in their comments saying, oh my God, this took forever and it hurt my hands. Well, that's the experience I had, and I wouldn't put that in comments, so okay, never mind. But anyways, my husband's a huge Star Wars fan, and I thought he would get the biggest kick out of this, and he did. He loves it. But this is the Star Wars double knitted, let's see, I'm looking at my notes, excuse me, the double knit scarf, Star Wars double knit scarf. This is by Jessica Goddard, and I know it's going to be upside down until I get to the other end, but it's got all of these images of Star Wars, and of course on the other side it's the same, of course double knitted. So this right here is some kind of alien language, and it says somewhere exactly what it says, and I've seen other people in their projects, they will look up the language, because you can, and look up the alphabet, and they'll create their own saying here using the alphabet. By the time I got to that point, I'm like, I'm just knitting it as is. Of course, the Death Star, the Millennium Falcon, that's, what do you call it? The Mandalorian helmet, Starfighter, anyways. So yeah, this scarf is longer than I am tall, not by much, but it's a beast. The double knitting, I guess it had to do with also the gauge that I used, because I wanted it to be really tight. But that coupled with the double knitting, I mean, I could only work on it for so long before I had to put it down and rest my hands. It kind of made my hands ache. You know, I'm no spring chicken, and so that probably has something to do with it too, but double knitting the way I do it, and I hold yarn in each of my hands and kind of do it both together, it put a whooping on my hands. So that's another reason why it took so long to complete. But one of the cool things that I learned, and I'm pretty sure I learned this from Sockmatician, is the Kitchener cast on and then bind off. And so this is the first scarf I've done where that, you know, has this beautiful edge at the end that just blends into the other side. And both ends are matchy-matchy, which I'm pretty happy about. So yeah, so Jessica Goddard's Star Wars double knit scarf. If you have a Star Wars fan that you love immensely, not just like, but love immensely, they'd probably like this. And there, you know, I saw on the project page some people shortened it out a little bit and maybe did a cowl or whatever. You can get creative with this. If you want to do the full scarf, go for it. It was quite the accomplishment. I felt he loves it, and that's really what matters, right? He had a couple of his coworkers, because of course he posted pictures on Facebook, and a couple of his coworkers were like, I want one.
I'm like, sure, $500.
So I don't don't think I'll be making another one of those. But beautiful, clever pattern. Good experience. And so, yeah, so that's one of my most recent FOs. Excuse me, I'm going to be taking a drink of my orange vanilla flavored water in my Moscow Mule cup. And I like using this cup because for some reason, and it might be my imagination, I feel like it keeps the liquid colder. If it does, I don't know, but I think it does, so that's what matters. And it's pretty. Okay. What else? Oh, one of the things that I forgot to mention last time when I was talking about, the whole drama that's going on in the knitting world as far as what happened to Maria Tuscan and Nathan, the sockmatician, and the social justice warrior thing. One of the things that I forgot to mention, I'm not going to go into it again. I said my piece and that's that. But I wish I had done it much sooner. I don't feel like I'm, any kind of hero or anything like that, but I did want to share that one of the first things I wanted to do once this... this is really bothering me. One of the first things that I thought about doing once I realized, once I finally was able to say something, do something, or whatever, is I immediately went to Tuscan Knits to buy some of her yarn. I wish I had done it sooner. And I only bought one skein for now. 2 reasons. One reason is she sold out of a bunch, which made me very happy. There's a lot on her website that's just completely sold out. Yay, Maria. The other reason is I am trying to be a little bit more mindful as far as buying yarn. And so I don't buy yarn I say that after the whole twisted yarn shop thing. But anyways, I'm trying not to buy yarn willy-nilly without a project in mind for it. But I did want to buy a skein from Tuscan Knits to show my support, to just show my support, and of course once I started looking at her stuff, she's got beautiful stuff and pretty reasonable. If you haven't looked at her stuff, I encourage you to. And yeah, so I wanted to mention that yes, I got, and it should be here either today or tomorrow, and I'm super excited. I really hoped that it'd be here before I recorded to show you, but that's going to be on the next. I'll show it next episode. And then the other thing I wanted to mention in the same topic of all of this stuff was there's a podcast that featured this whole drama. It's called Unsafe Space Podcast, and they talk about, it's not a knitting podcast, it's a podcast where they just talk about controversial issues. They talk about relevant issues that are being talked about a lot, and my opinion is they are a voice of reason, and they did 3 separate episodes about the whole knitting community drama and social justice warriors and what happened. They even interviewed Maria. And they interviewed another lady, Dr. Karlyn, her handle is DrKarlynB. Her name is Karlyn Borysenko. That's the best I can do with pronunciation. But they interviewed her as well. I haven't watched that yet, but it's on my next to watch. But she's her Instagram says she's an organizational psychologist, speaker, writer of all sorts of things, compulsive knitter, beer snob, accidental political commentator. And I love what she has to say on a lot of things. So she's if you don't follow her, she's worth checking out. Anyways, Unsafe Space podcast. Check it out. They really talk about, and if you're unfamiliar with like the details of what all happened within the knitting community, they really break it down like chronologically and what happened. They mention, of course, I think really the catalyst to this whole thing, Karen Templer was her name. She had a blog and she mentioned something about a trip to India, and I think it spun all out of control from there. So yeah, I'll say it again, Unsafe Space podcast. They talk about a variety of things. So check it out. So there's that. And I think that's all I really wanted to talk about. I really wanted just to kind of get back into this podcasting thing and shoot out episodes so that if you are looking for a new podcast, you'd be able to find something new. One of the things that I brought up in my last podcast also, and I know I mentioned her last time because she's the whole reason why I felt ready to speak out about this. But Nancy from Round Robin Podcast, if you haven't watched her podcast, because of course after watching her episode 26 where she addresses the dismantling the knitting cult, of course I went back and binge watched all of her episodes, and I love her. I love her podcast. She is a beautiful maker. She's like one of those people where I feel like I could sit down and have a glass of wine with. But anyways, she's a great podcaster. Check her out, Round Rabbit. But I mentioned one of the things that I wanted to get into was sewing. I wanted to learn how to sew. I've never had my hands on a sewing machine and I want to learn. And so, but that wasn't, while Nancy sews, that wasn't the origin of my inspiration to sew, although it helped. But
let me grab this.
So about 6 months ago, I decided to knit a bag. It is the Marlene Market bag, and I might drop a picture in, I might not. It's by Bobby Fitzgerald, and I might be able to just show you a little picture right here. Super, super duper cute. Yeah. Kind of a bohemian little drop bag. Really cool. Well, I'll be able to show you with mine. The stitch. Moss stitch, I think it is. Maybe seed stitch. Are they the same thing? I'm not sure. Anyway, this is one of the few times where, excuse me, I actually looked at it and I wanted to do two things. I wanted to kind of put my own spin on the color because it shows that and it's your basic gray, which is nice, but I wanted to put some color. But one of the things I also wanted to do is I wanted to stash dive. I have this huge, I mentioned in another episode that when I first got the knitting bug, I went to like a Facebook page that's called Yarn Hoarders D-Stash, where you can go on there and you can get some stuff for pretty inexpensive. And one of the things I wanted to do is I wanted to get just your basic inexpensive acrylic yarn so that I could practice. And I ended up buying this lady's, she had like a box of just willy-nilly, like, what do you call it? Red Heart Super Saver stuff. But a ton of it, but for super cheap. And so now I have a ton of it, and it didn't take me long to move from, practicing with cheap yarn to wanting the good stuff and making stuff. So anyways, I have this stash that I want to use. And so anyways, I grabbed some, I didn't want to use it for stuff that is going to be up against your skin because, some of the old Red Heart, No offense to anybody who likes Red Heart. I mean, I like Red Heart too, but some of their old acrylic is not the softest. And so using it for a bag, I thought was perfect. And so I grabbed 3 colors that I thought would be really neat together, and I knit this bag. I haven't done the top there yet. I need to seam the top there, and obviously I haven't done my ends. But this stitch, which is either seed or moss, if not both, if they're not the same thing, super sturdy, very solid stitch, makes a very solid purse, a little bit stretchy, but just very, very sturdy fabric that it makes. And so yeah, I thought that was a cute color palette. And then, what I wanted to do, because there is some stretch to it, I wanted to put a lining in it. And I could like hand sew a lining in there kind of willy-nilly, but I didn't want to do it willy-nilly. I really wanted it to be quality. And so the more I thought about that, the more I'm like, I really like this bag, and I would make more of them for anybody who wanted one. But I certainly wouldn't do it without a liner. And the more I thought about it, I'm like, I need to learn how to sew, because I need to use a sewing machine to put a liner in, really, if I wanted to do it with quality in mind. So I got this whole plan. Anyways, that's where my inspiration for learning how to sew was. And, really researching a beginner sewing machine. And I was right on the cusp of buying like one of the newer Brother computerized sewing machines. And then of course I get to the episode of Round Rabbit where she's like, if you have a chance to get a vintage one, do that. And she really made a good case for doing that. And so now I'm kind of hemming and hawing. But I think I might just go with the less expensive computerized one just while I'm in the early stages and learning. So I don't invest too much time and too much money on something that maybe I might not enjoy. So I'm probably going to get the one that I have been looking at it's under $200. It's computerized. It's by Brother. And so I haven't pulled the trigger on it yet, but that's probably what I'll get. But this whole project right here is what inspired me to learn how to sew. And hopefully I'll like it. So, but anyways, I decided to pick a liner, and I just thought this would be super cute. So I went and just got this fabric that I thought would be really pretty inside this color palette. So that's going to be my liner once I learn how to sew and get that liner inside that bag. And then I also got a couple of decorative buttons to put on the outside that I thought would be really pretty. So I thought these were really... Let's put that. And these are just from my local fabric store. And so just a little accent on the outside. So that's what inspired me to learn how to sew. And so once I get that machine and once I kind of go through YouTube videos and, I went through a couple of weeks of trying to call around to set up a sewing lesson. Everybody knows you can learn just about anything on YouTube. However, with something like sewing, I really wanted kind of a one-on-one with a person in person to kind of show me the ins and outs of how to work the thing and really get in there. And I had scheduled, well, first of all, it was really hard to find a lesson on actually how to work a sewing machine. They're so few and far between. It's really a shame. It's kind of a lost art, I think. And then once I did find somebody, she ended up getting sick and canceling, and, that's woe is me, right? She gets sick and oh my gosh, that's the worst thing that's ever happened to me. But anyways, it worked out that I decided, you know what, if my husband can learn how to change the spark plug on a BMW, which is not like any other car as far as being able to open up the hood and just go right in. I don't know if you're familiar with BMWs, and I'm going way off track here, but everything is covered under the hood. Once you open the hood of a BMW, there's like another cover covering everything. You have to take so much apart just to get to the basics of a BMW. So changing a spark plug on a BMW is not as easy as changing a spark plug on most cars. Anyways, if he can learn how to do that and do it, and he did it well, I could learn how to use a sewing machine on YouTube. So that's what I'm going to do. So that's another thing I'm kind of hoping on sharing with you in this podcast is kind of my journey into the sewing world. And I'm hoping to hear from you too. If you have tips as far as, starting out with a sewing machine and sewing and that kind of thing, please feel free to reach out, leave a comment, send me a message. I'm happy to hear anything that you have to say. Because I know there's a lot of talented makers out there, and I'm all ears. So that was that project. So hopefully by the next time I record, I will be the proud owner of a sewing machine. And hopefully to get this bag done. And so yeah, it's been languishing. So those are my projects for this week. I'm hoping I'll probably be recording again in another week, just because what else am I going to do? I'm really hoping this whole, COVID-19 doesn't last long, but I'm a realist. I think it's going to last a few months. It's a crazy, crazy world we're living in. And, I hope you all are being smart, being sane, and please feel free to leave me a comment and say hello. And I hope to see you next time. In the meantime, wash your hands, keep your distance, but thank goodness for technology, and reach out to the people you love via technology, and I'll see you next time. Bye.